Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? It's 10 a.m. here on the east coast of the United States, and we're ready to get going with some additional features on MLOps.net. I hope you all had a great week so far, and as excited as I am to get back into working on these fun features, I think, and fun issues, and see where it can take us. I certainly had a late morning this morning, which was awesome because I got a good sleep in. But that means that I'm having my first cup of coffee right now. It's gonna get my brain going. So if you notice that my brain is slow in the beginning and picking up, that's because my caffeine level is picking up as well, together with my brain. Who do we have on the stream today? Anyone from abroad? Anyone from the US? And what do you all want to see today? Certainly have some thoughts here and some ideas, and especially want to continue working on adding support for URI deployment here for MLOps.net. That's going to be my main focus today, and hopefully we can knock that out of the park today. And if we do so, we can get potentially very close to a 1.0 release of this library, because we'll have at least something in each part of the phases for the model lifecycle, more or less. Enough that I think that is worth putting into some kind of production ready state at least. But with that, let's join and start looking at what we're going to do today, I think. So without further ado here, we have this PR that we started last week. If you remember, we did a PR for deployment targets, and we started doing a PR for URI deployment of a registered model to a specific deployment target, right? And we got pretty far. We got to the point where I was apparently writing up what we hadn't done yet and needed to do. Sorry. But in general here, we got this deployment target, deployment class here that we did. And we had this deployment catalog, and let's see, I thought we had already merged some of these things to master branch here. We may have to just rebase from the master branch here. But we have this deployment class here that's going to hold all information about the deployment, which experiment it was part of, which register model we actually deployed, and where we deployed it to. And we got all that set up here, deployment targets, and we should be ready to go. So I think what's next on the list here is actually also deploying the model. Good morning, Brett. How's it going? Good to have you on the stream. Just walking through kind of what we did the other week here, looking at what we've done so far. And I think what I want to do here is rebase from master, because I feel like we merged some of these things already. But in general today, what we need to focus on is let's see, this one can be discarded. We need to focus on the actual copying of the model to our repo and such. That's going to be interesting. And I have prepped very little to this, so we'll see how it goes for sure. But it should be fun. Let's see. So, where'd I go? We have issue. What's the issue? What's the branch in this one? This is branch 149. Okay. Let's get 149. Get the going. Rebase here. Let's see how it's going. Update for master. Okay, all good. Nice. Let's see. What do we have here? Okay. So if we refresh this one, let's see if we still have 19. Okay, 12. That's better. That's the most expected, because we did merge some of these things last week, not yesterday. So let's go to the code here and look at where we are at the present moment here. So I believe we were in the deployment catalog here when we left off last week, and we got into this point here where, hey, we can create the deployment as sync. So when we deploy a model here, right, we pass in deployment targets, we pass in the registered model, and we pass in deploy by. And what we do then, supposed to at least, is right, we're going to create a deployment in our repo. So we just kind of associate that model together with deployment target, and I think that it's done. As we can see here, we open the context, we create the deployments, we add it, say change of sync, that's all good. And we apparently also created test last time, so that is fantastic. So that's nice. So now we're at the point here where, hey, we need to deploy this model as well to production or test. And this is going to be a little bit tricky, so we have to think about this together. I'm not sure if we'll find I have a good solution directly. But in essence here, what we want to do here is we want to pick up the model from our repo, place it in a new container, bucket, or folder, depending on where we deploy it, right? So think about the fact that we have our registered model of sorts, and now we want to deploy it, so we're going to move it from one container to another container. And I think the easiest thing to start with is probably, well, it could be probably a local file, honestly, because that's going to be the most straightforward solution here. So we can see how we want to do that, and then we have to do Azure and we have to do AWS. And they all have different implementations, so it's going to be slightly different how we do this. But let's look at the the local file first and move from there. Does that sound good to folks? So here's the local file model repository that we need to work on. So we can see here we have those pretty simple methods so far here, which is upload model.sync and download model.sync. And these again are trusting your local file system. So if you opt in to storing your models locally, this is how it would look like. If we do it in Azure, we do container again, and if you do it in AWS, we have S3 buckets. And we can clean up this a little bit when we can here. So now we have to look at this and figure out how to do this instead here. So let's see here. So what do we do here? Well, in general here, the destination folder path here, if you haven't set it, so it's not overridden, we're going to use the user profiles path here, either Windows or Linux, and then we're going to add mlops to folder path apparently, yep. And then we're going to use that. So that's where it's going to be. So we need to store this, and I think we have it here anyways, that's good. So we know where we'll find our models, and we can use a name then to fetch them. And we upload them here and download them there. Okay. So now we need another method here, which is going to be slightly different, I think, right? Let's see how that would look like. That could be something like, let's see here, deploy model maybe. Something like this, right? Where we are going to, for a specific model, we want to deploy it. And I wonder if, honestly, all we need actually is a deployment, because that should have everything on it. So we could almost, well, it actually probably is fine to do that. But we could return this deployment back from this method, and we could use that instead as well. I think this is fine. Okay. So what do we want to do here? Let's think about this a bit here. Let's say we store our model here. Let me do some quick things here. Let's say we store our model in C models, right? Too early. This is our model repo. Well, we do want to have a specific other place for our deployed models, and they need to have a folder structure for their deployment target as well, right? So the question here is we can either put them in our source file path, which probably makes sense, or our user profile here. So I almost think, to be safe here, it may make sense that we put them in models and then deployment, and then we do separate things there underneath there. So for example, this could be deployment test. Sorry. It could be deployment prod, right? And the reason why I think about that is because this is the only path we have access to. We know we're gonna have read access to, and write access to is probably this one here. What we could change though is we could change the way we do this, because right now we append ml ops if it's a destination folder. Let's see here. Think about this a bit. Morning, Mitchell. Cool, that's good, Brett. What I'm thinking about right here is that should we, when we get to this part here, should we be a bit more prescriptive? So let's say the destination folder, if a user says, I want my destination folder to be models, should we then append repo on top of that? So we have a model/repo and then a model/deployment. I almost think that is better, because then we can have like the head. This is going to be the folder that someone provides to us, right? And then we can have a subfolder for like a model repo, and then a subfolder for a deployment path instead here. Like that, they separate a bit more, so they don't all live in the same place. What do you all think about that suggestion? Do you think that makes sense? Because that would need to also update these upload models and download model things. Okay, so let's start by changing that then. I'm gonna add, I'm a sucker for these. So in our case here, when we create a destination folder here, if we haven't provided it right, we're going to get this user profile folder. That's all good. Otherwise, we do this one. But in this case here, we also want to append, in that case, an additional path here. So it should be destination folder, should be path, combine, destination folder, right? And then we'll combine it with model repository. Is that, do you think that's a good folder name, model repository? You can also skip the hyphen here if you want to. I think we'll go with that if there's no one screaming out loud. Okay. Thank you. No worries. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. Lead hyphen. Perfect. Great. So do that. This should be fine for both the model here and for the upload and download here. We should be good here. Okay, cool. So now we know that we're going to have, model repository for the destination folder, and then we want the deployment here. So what we want to do here, in that case, is to first we want to create a folder to start this in, and then we want to copy it. And I'm just going to remove these comments later, but I want to make sure we understand what we want to do here. Awesome. So we'll do directory.create and deployment target. Let's do deployment folder, right? That's going to be path.combine destination. And what we'll do actually is we'll create a source folder here. Let's do this. Destination folder, let's keep that. But we just need, and why is it public, by the way? Yeah, exactly. We'll do that not exist, but let's create a path first. So I was thinking we can have a source folder here as well, and a model repo here. Not sure why this is public. Okay, that shouldn't be public. Let me show you what I was thinking here, and let me know if you think it makes sense. We can create a model repository folder here, which is going to be model repository. And then we can have the destination folder to be just destination folder, like that. Because if you do that, if you have the separate folders here, we can then do some magic here instead. So we can do destination folder, and then here we can do deployment, right? And honestly, we can do... Should we? No. Okay. And here we'll do... Oh, interesting. I'm thinking about one thing here. Sorry if I'm going all across the board here right now, but we also need to think about the fact that we have multiple experiments, right? So we can have experiment A, experiment B, and we probably don't... I guess each of those experiments is going to have its own... Each model is going to have its own unique name, but we can't really guarantee that, right? So it probably makes sense if you have deployment and then, you know, experiment name here. And then we'll do test like that. So each experiment has its own kind of sub-deployment, more or less. Yep, cool. Alright, we're on the same page. Perfect. In that case, we should have that. That's going to be an interesting one. I think we have register model. It's going to be a long path. And then here we'll do deployment targets dot name. So this will be destination folder, deployment, the experiment name. We'll do this instead. It's too long. So exactly as I think you said, Mitch or Brett, let's do if it exists or not here. So if directory exists, that's true. That's true. That is true. That is true. I wonder if we want to hinder that in the UI in that case. But I guess we don't have a UI yet, so that's true. How would you do that, Mitch? Directory. I'll continue working on this in the meanwhile, but that's a good point. Do this in the meantime here. We're gonna move this out quick. Yeah, I'm wondering, does it make sense if we allow those though and just have a validation instead, saying, hey, you have invalid names here? Because I think what I almost want to do instead is to add validation on the deployment target name here, an experiment name, not include those characters. So when we actually get here, because when we get here, it's kind of a bit too late, almost, that we have the wrong characters, and it almost makes sense to hinder that upstream instead. Which I really like that idea, though. I think it makes a lot of sense to do that. I'm going to write that up in the notes here on the side. Experiment name. Does that make sense, right? So like instead of checking that for here, we'll just check it upstream instead and make sure that it shouldn't be able to get here. Okay. Alright, so we have this. I'll do create deployment folder. Sounds good. Create deployment folder here, and that's going to do this for me. Register model, deployment target rights. Perfect. So if you do this, we should at least be able to have a directory for our experiment. And honestly, what we also want to do here is return the path here. So we'll return the path to the folder. Okay. We'll call it deployment folder. Fine. Okay. So now we have that, and now we need to figure out the path to our model that we want to copyright. So we want to have our model path, and it's going to be path combined, model repository, and then this is going to be combined together with register model, and is it run? Artifact, right? Name. I think this is what we do, right? So if you upload model here, source file path, what we do is combine the folder here, and we need to change this as well, by the way. Change these destination folders to model folder path here. Okay. Just making sure this is correct here. I think so. Okay. How many do we have these one now? Okay, that is good. So we should now know that the path to the model here should be model repository, the name of the run artifact here, which is going to be the name of the model, right? And zip, because that's kind of what we do here. Actually, we stored with a run ID. That's kind of what I was thinking we would do. Interesting. Sure, it shall be great. We can definitely, I think what would be great, Mitch, if you want, you can add an issue in the repo for that, but for cleaning it for the experiment name and deployment target name. And we can add as an input and then have like a validation and say, hey, you, or we can just clean it and save it. But I think we should do it further upstream. So when you get here, we already know that they'll be okay. If that's okay with you. I want to look at one thing here. One thing that caught my eye here is that when we download the model here and upload it, is we are using the run ID. I'm not sure if that's actually the case everywhere else, to be honest. So let's look at the in Azure, for example. Do we do that? We do run ID. Okay. Interesting. Download model, upload model. Oh, okay. I see what we do. Yeah, we pass in the file path, but we actually don't actually use that name of the file. Actually, that's pretty smart, honestly. I'm happy with that. Not to say it's the best idea, but as long as we know what we're doing, it's okay. Let's see. Yeah. I think that's fair. That's fair. I think the only issue, Mitch, with that though is when you get down here and you want to deploy it, we have to keep track of the actual path, which I guess it's fine as long as you use the same kind of removal of characters all the time. It's only a little bit, brittle in that sense. If we change what characters are invalid, which I don't think we'll do, it's a risk that we will have a mismatch of where things are. Because we are going to fetch them by name in some ways. That's my only concern here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's true. That is a good idea. Yes. Yes, Mitch, that's a great idea. Great idea. Experiment ID, it's good, it's going to be unique, it's going to have no issues, right? I love it. Great idea, Mitch. This is not going to be readable by anyone. Well, it's going to be readable by someone, I guess. But mostly by the system, so I think that's completely fine. Let's do that. It's generally for the system itself, and if someone wants to read it, you know, that's great, but that's not the idea of this tool. Okay. So the only thing we have then is the deployment target here, and we could do the GUI on this one as well if you wanted to. We'll definitely make it very unreadable, that's the only thing. But the only issue with that, I guess, is that we are going to provide a path to the user here. So at the end of the day here, right, what we'll do is we're going to give them the path to where the file is stored, and they can then use that to you know, consume their machine learning model. And I wonder if it matters if it's GUID in the path. I don't think so. But it's not always obvious then. Like, you can't see from the path, you won't be able to see if it's test or production or what kind of environment that is. I wonder if that's an issue. I don't think so, honestly. But yeah, yeah. I think just because the user wants to read where this is and be confident and hey, this is actually my test system, it is my production model, I think we probably want to go back to it. Slugs. What do you mean with slugs? Let's go back to naming for now. I think, what about this, Mitch? Just so we can continue as well. Do you mind adding an issue in the repo about our experiment names and deployment targets having potential invalid characters in them? And we can actually address this as a separate issue instead. Because I think it's a good thing, but I think we could have as a holistic view on how we want to do that, if that's easier. We can do it on multiple places in that way, so, and have the same kind of path. And if you want to copy in the code you usually use, that would be awesome as well. Thanks, Mitch. That's awesome. Appreciate it. Alright. So if we go back to deploy model here, one of the things that we do here is we want to have the run ID. Interesting. Oh, we have a file system abstraction, by the way. That's awesome. So we should use that instead. And not use these path combines here. So in this sense here, we want to combine the run ID, and this is a GUID, but let's see. We'll do the same thing as up here, but a little bit different. So the model path now is going to be the model repository, and it's going to be the run ID of the Azure model. That's going to be where we have this model here, right? And before I forget it, I'm going to change this as well here. We should be able to do file path, file system here, path combine, and the same thing. I think we can use this one here. And that's be good, so we can mock away these dependencies here for later. It's not static dependencies anymore, which is good. I think AJ added that, so thank you, AJ. That's a good idea. Alright, so model path, that's one we want to copy, right? And that looks good. And the deployment folder is here, and we want to copy that over. We should be able to use something like using our file stream, this file, system file, open, read, model path. Let's call it source file actually, because that's what we seem to call it up here. Okay, and the destination here though, we need to create a destination as well. Can we do this? Let's see, it was a while ago since I used can we do is it just this? Is that as simple as that? Let me see. I completely forgot how to copy a file over. That's something I don't use very often. It's a NuGet package that's really sleek actually. It just abstracts away the dependencies here. It's called System IO abstractions, and you don't have to work with the physical dependencies then, which is nice. So you can mock it away for unit testing and those kind of things here, which is great. I'm sorry for a very basic check here, but what is a copy? Okay. Copy, perfect. How simple that is. Some of these things you just never really use. Do we have file, copy? Okay. Alright, so source file, and then we want the actual path here as well. So we want the deployed file. Google's our friend, right? At least it's been my friend last week or so. Alright. And I think we still want the same name of this one. So it's going to be just going to copy this over to the deployment folder, but it's going to have the same run ID. That should be all good. And let's call this deployed file. Okay, and we have okay, we don't have any sync method here. It's okay. All right, so does that look good for you guys? So we are creating a deployment folder. If it doesn't exist, we are returning it over. We are making sure we get the path to the existing one and this one, and then we are copying it over. I think we'll add as well as a little bit of sanity checks here to make sure that this actually exists, right? Okay. So I want to just do if file system file path exists. If you don't have this file, we definitely want to throw some kind of exception here. Operation exception. The model to be deployed does exist. So this happens, we actually get some reasonable errors. Okay. Alright, I think that's pretty good. And we'll go ahead and add this as well. We actually don't need these comments here because it's not a public class, so I'm going to remove them. They don't. I'm not going to add too much value anyway. Okay. So let's go ahead and add this to the API here. So we have this one here. And here we can do an actual command instead. So this is going to be deploys model from the model repository to the deployment target. Okay, I think that's good. That's going to be a file one. So the question is, do we have any tests around this we can test with? And then we'll move on to Azure and ALBS here. That's going to be more fun, I think. But let's see, I think we have some tests here. And we can go ahead and... These are all... Okay, perfect. Are these unit tests? I think they are unit tests. I guess we don't have any actual integration tests for this, which is makes sense, I guess, but it's going to be a bit difficult to ensure this works if we don't have them. Let's see. Okay, so we have some tests here. Upload model async, and I don't think this actually is this is a very specific test. It's a local file model repository, so it's actually not a proper test here, but we can change this to a better name here as well, and we can go ahead and test this here. So we can call this to be local file model repository tests, and then we'll go ahead and add a test here, because we already have an upload model here. So let's go ahead and add a test for copy here, or deploy, sorry. Public sync task. So how's everyone's week been so far? Have you done any fun stuff? Things here. So what do we need to do here? We need to create the local file model repository. Wow, yeah, I saw the weather from Sweden actually today, this morning. It was really warm in Sweden, so I guess it's warm in the UK too. I've been battling a multi-threaded issue at work for the past week. We finally solved it at 3 PM on a Friday. That's definitely a big change for sure, which was nice. These are not integration tests, is it? I guess they are, yeah. Run repository, that's okay. Model catalog, okay. This is a real file system, I think, actually, so that's good. Yeah, that felt good. I thought we actually had to give up on it, honestly, and just kind of figure out mitigation issues, but no, it was good. We solved it. Alright, what is all of this code? Well, let's think about what we want to actually do here before we do anything else here. We want to deploy, right? And we don't... Where is that? Model catalog. What we want to do... Oh, it's actually not model catalog. It's going to be in the deployment catalog, right? That's where we want to do this. So does it make sense to have it in this test? I think so. Because honestly, we don't need to have it here. I see, okay. Let's do this. Sorry about the back and forth here, but this one can remain the name for this. That's fine. We'll go ahead and these ones can be reverted. And instead we'll create a new one here. Okay, we have those changes here. So what I'm trying to do here is create an integration test that can assure us that we actually have things work as expected here. So we have these deployment catalog tests here, but in general they mock away the actual behavior of the local file model repository. So I think what we want to do here is add additional integration tests here, and for the specific scenario we're trying to do here. And I'll just add that in a separate folder because I think that makes more sense. We'll call it model repository. And what we're going to do here is we're going to add a new test file here. Local file model repository test, right? And this one is going to be a lot more fun. So in here, test class, right? In here, we'll do public void deploy model given existing model should deploy model to deployment target folder. Long name. Alright, so arrange act search. And what we'll need here is we'll need a local file model repository. It's going to be a new local file model repository. And it's going to take the file system, and we actually want the real one, so we'll just pass in the new one. And we don't actually care about destination folder. We can care about that, it's fine. Destination folder, it's going to be, let's put it under C models. MLOps. Perfect. Okay, pass it in here. So that's going to give us that one. And what is this complaining about? Okay. Let's see, what do we usually pass in here? I think we had the wrong using, that's the issue here. I abstractions, right? Let's get this one here. Yeah, we don't want Visual Basic here. Okay, there we go. No Visual Basic. Alright, so given that, and I know we're going to do some more range here as well, but in general, what we'll do here is we'll do local file model repo, deploy model, and we have to pass in the register model, and we have to pass in deployment targets. We have to create those as well. By the way, Brett, how's your house selling going, if may I ask? Any luck with that? We have some home projects here as well that we need to do, which I'm scared about. Targets. Okay. So I'm creating the bare minimum here, by the way, just so we have what we need. Experiment, right? Nice. Okay, well, good luck. That's awesome. We're looking at creating a new, remodeling a kitchen at home here, and that's fun. A lot of work for sure, but it's going well. Let's do this actually. So we'll go to some stores after this, I think, to check out what we need to get for the kitchen. It should be fun. Okay, deployment targets. Test. Yeah, it doesn't. But it's fun, right? Should be fortunate enough to be able to have those problems. Okay. So we have the bare minimum here for this stuff, which is good. And the only thing we have right now that we don't have an actual model that we can copy over, because in our MLOps folder here we don't have any models yet. So we need to make sure we have that, and I think we can just copy one over real quick here. I think we have a run ID model path. So how is this been done? Perfect, thank you, Mitch. Let me look at this one real quick here. That's awesome, appreciate that. It's gonna be a good one to do. Thank you. All right. So let's see, and that's good issue to get started with as well. But I'm happy to do it later. Okay, StreamWriter. So what do we do here? Model path. So we written. I'm trying to understand what was done here. I think AG wrote this test, but it may have been myself. I'm trying to understand here how we are doing this right now, because I know we have the path here for something. Where is? Are we mocking this away or no? Find model storage path. Create run artifact. Let's check the Azure one, because I know we have done this before where we've kind of uploaded the model. And there's something we are missing in these tests. Okay. Exactly, so this is where we want to do, right? Because we actually have the model here. We are faking a model more or less. And we just want to kind of call this and upload it. And that should be good. So I'm gonna copy this over, this whole thing here, and we're going to do the same thing here if we don't have that. I'm not sure how that local one works, but that's okay. We can figure out later, because we actually don't need to do more than just copy this line of code here, and that should be fine. Hey, how's it going? Welcome, Dave. How's your Saturday going so far? Local file. Okay. Let's see. Upload model sync. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. So in this case, we should be good here. So by doing this, we will ensure that we have this model uploader ready to our place that we want to do, right? And we have our register model, everything good here. We have the path to it as well. That should be good. So when we do this, we should copy it over to the right place. So now what we want to do is just assert that we have this file to expect here. So expected file path, that should be, and we can use files if we want to here. We'll just do path combine. Destination folder. We expect that to be there, right? We expect it to be deployment. We expect it to be experiment name. Cool. What is the ABP framework? I don't think I've ever heard about that before. Is that I must have missed that one for sure. Test, and then finally we want the registered model run ID. Right, so that's kind of what we want to do here. And then we want to say that file exists for expected file path should be true. And I can already see some improvements here, but let's see if this works first, and then we can do those afterwards here. Because there's definitely some improvements that I can think of here. For example, does it make sense here to pass back the file path that this is deployed to? I know we need to add a method for sure to kind of get the file of a deployed model, so that may make sense. We want to do that later, but maybe it actually makes sense just to pass back the file path here as well to where this one's deployed. Let's try to run this first, then we can make that improvement. Okay, pass it back. You were fast enough, Mitchell, so we'll do that. I want to add a separate call as well later, so we can kind of pass in the same arguments here and get the path to the file, because that's something we will need eventually. Okay. Okay, returns. We'll do the path to the deployed model. Okay. So we have that here. Ah, okay. That's a new abbreviation. I haven't heard that before. Cool. Okay, so we should just pass back this path here. We already have that handy for us. That's good. So we're gonna do 2 tests here. First one I want to do, so I want to do 2 tests. The first thing I want to do is actually do this. I want to just make sure we actually have it here. Actually, let's do this. I want to make sure that the path that we are expecting here. Let's see. Let's copy this test, because I want to first check that we have it deployed, but also want to check that the path we are setting, and we can do a unit test actually, that's fine. That should be a unit test. This should be perfect here. We'll just go ahead and set that. We don't even need this anymore. We'll do deployed path. Okay. Alright, let's run this one. And then we should add a unit test to make sure that the path that it creates is actually the path we expect, right? So Dave, who's the next speaker for your meetup? Who you got lined up? How did yours? You did the talk as well, right? How did it go? Let's run this. Running, did it pass? Nice, okay. That passed on the first try. That's pretty amazing. Let me just change one thing here. Cool. Who would have thought that would actually pass the first time? I didn't do that for sure. I think it's the first time on the stream that has happened. Alright, so we've apparently managed to succeed on this. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to do as well here is that we wanted to have a check here to make sure the path that's being created here is actually the path that we want. And we can do that real quick here, because we have a unit test project right here. We have a local file repo here. And all we need to do here is add a quick test method here saying that public async task. Actually, let's copy one of these. Be quicker. we'll say that deploy model should return correct deployment path, right? And what I want to do here is say expected path should be file path combine, and we will go ahead and check that real quick here. This is more or less this deployed path here. Just to make sure that it doesn't change. I'm getting sloppy today. So in our case here, it's going to end up in the folder path that is here. So it's going to be the base, right? And it's going to be deployment, it's going to be experiment name here. And let's go ahead and fix that real quick here. File system. I'm not sure where we have this. This is fine. We can skip that. Right. So we're using a mock here for this one, which is good. And I think this is just the package we use. That's awesome. And we'll gain the folder path here. And that's that. We have this specific one here. And what we want to do here is we want to do deployed path, and we'll say deploy model rights, and the same thing as we had before here. We need to just create these two, just so we can get the path correct. And I'm rushing this a little bit because this is kind of a boring test, but I want us to create it, because if you don't, then I promise you it will break some point in the future. But it's a great documentation on why we've done certain things in a different way. So when we change something, we will know that was a change from the expected outcome here. Okay. Okay, so given that, then we expect this to be experiment name. We expect this one to be test. I'll spell it out correctly here instead of doing this. Okay. And finally, we expect this to be register model run ID. .zip. Okay. And we expect this one here to be expected path should be the same as the deployed path. And actually it should be this. Right? So we want to be sure that our path here is correct, and we don't need any async here. Okay, let's run these tests real quick. Hopefully that works. Should give us some confidence that this is at least written correctly. Okay, so something didn't pass on this test here. Interesting. Why does it start failing now? Oh, okay. But why does everyone else fail? Oh, it's because we've changed the path to where this is, of course. Which is good. That is fine. Okay. And we have to change the path here as well, because this is where we expect it to be, and we need to add model repository here. Well, I'm glad we did this test then, because they would have started failing regardless for us. Okay, let's see. finally this one. Okay, so if you run this again, I think the other ones should pass, but this one still failed. But let's run this to make sure we at least fix the broken test. And we probably need to mock the behavior of the file system here to make sure it's happy that the file is there. Okay, perfect. Fix the broken test. So now the issue here is that it's saying that the model to deploy doesn't exist, because that's the assert we did. No worries, thank you for joining in. Have a great weekend. So it's failing on this assert here, which is awesome. This is what we want it to fail at. So we have to mock this file system here. And do we do that somewhere else here? Okay. So this is how you do it apparently. Add a file here, so we'll say that we have a file. And we'll move this over up here. We'll say expected path, and we'll say okay, is this the file data? That's fine. Okay, so that should hopefully fix that. Let's run this again and see. Get this working. Okay, so it still doesn't exist. I have to figure out if it's because I put it in the wrong place or something here. That is the path to the file, and that's all good. There is something that I don't understand here. It's because we're doing something incorrect here. Deployment, experiment name, test. Okay. Oh, it's a source file, that's why. Not the expected path. Okay. So it's a source that's not necessarily expected source. And where do we do the upload? Nowhere. But it's more or less the same path, so that's fine. We can just fix this real quick. That should be path combined model repository. We don't need this anymore then. Okay. And we'll just say source path. Okay. Little messy text, but that should be good. Alright, let's see if this runs now. Okay, perfect. So we got that working. It's definitely not the prettiest test I've written in my life, but it's okay. And okay. And let's go ahead and clean these tests up a little bit because they're a little bit messy right now. And then we're gonna keep moving on here. So test initialize, public void test initialize. And what I want to do here is I want to break out the file system here. So I want to do this one and the class under tester, because those are both required, so there's no need for us to play around with them each time here. And then we'll go ahead and do this one here. It's going to be this, just to save a little bit of space here on each test here, so you can make it more readable on what we actually care about here. Don't need this, don't need that. A little bit more readable at least. So we have folder path, mlops, and we'll copy these up here to make them make more sense. And then we'll do that. Okay, that's easy to read. So what we can do now is just have one more test here to make sure we get the exception we wanted, and then we'll move on here. So what we're going to avoid here is we're not going to do this, and we're not going to do the source path. And of course these has to go back again because they want the models. Okay. So now we want to have an expected exception instead. Expected exception is going to be type of invalid operation, right? And it's going to be a message that we have written up ourselves here. So it should be this message right here. Okay. Perfect. Let's try to write this up and let's see if this works. We don't need the expected path anymore because that's pointless. And let's try to run this. Almost there. Okay. Any other build errors? Okay, so now we have these issues, so we can do, go ahead and implement these. That's not implemented right now. Surprised that the AWS one hasn't complained yet. I thought we had that set up already, but maybe not. Okay, one fail. Perfect. S3 as well. Okay, let's get that implemented. And then let's run these tests. At least see if we got this part working. Okay. We probably want to change the name on the deploy model method as well, because, well, it actually is fine. It's the local file model repository, that's fine. We can call it that. It's whatever it does. Yes, I think that's fine. Okay. Alright, so that works. So let's go ahead and push this change so far, and then we'll get to work on the Azure part here. So I'm going to say, actually we have to also update the deployment catalog here to contain the changes we have done so far. Because we can actually now go ahead and call this we don't? Okay, which one was it? We don't need folder path in a test. Okay, let me go back to the test and you can tell me what we don't need. Oh yeah, sorry. That's good. Cleaned. Nice. Less things is better. Thank you. Good eyes. Yep. Alright, so what we can do now here is we can say model. We should have access to the model catalog here as well, right? We don't. Okay. So we need to access to the model catalog here because, or the model repository, because we have done this deployment sync here. So now we need to pass in something here for the model repository. So we need the model repository here. That. And let's see. Should be good like that. And then what we can do now is this model repository. We can do dot deploy model and pass in the following parameters. And you're going to hate me, but I am a sucker for structure. And right now we have these in order, so we have to switch these. I'm gonna go crazy otherwise in a year or so if they passed in the different way, and I know I could have fixed that before it got too big. Okay, and we'll go ahead and just fix that real quick. We'll do that when we get there. Okay. So that should be good, and then we have to just switch these over real quick here. We're so close of at least being able to deploy it locally, which is a great start, for sure. Let's build this. I think we have a couple more build errors to resolve, and then push that change, and then we'll go to Azure here and see what we can do there. This is definitely time consuming, but I'm really happy that we what we did with the storage providers, consolidating like all those different storage providers for Cosmos and SQL and everything was really helpful, because at least we had to do, when we changed one thing for our data stores, then that is good, but this is definitely more intact. Cool, okay, that's good to know. We'll get AWS working as well for your bets. I think, at least for ML.NET, I think file deployment is going to be the most popular one compared to like containers and stuff. But I may be wrong there, but at least if I was going to deploy something into production or test something in the beginning, I would use the URI deployment, because that would be most useful. All right. That looks good. I think we can build now, and then we can push this up, and then we'll continue. We need a method to get the file path as well, but I think we can create a separate method for it as well. But let's actually, by the way, here, let's return that here, because at least if you deploy a model async, at least you can get that directly here. I think that makes the most sense for now. Sounds good. Have a good day, Brett. Good luck with that. Okay. Perfect. So we got this going. That's good. Let's check this in and continue working on this real quick here. Add a support for local file deployment. Alright, so now we're gonna get into the fun stuff here. Now we're gonna go to Azure first, because I feel like I'm more comfortable with Azure than AWS, and then we'll go to AWS if we have time, or we'll do that next time. So let's see here. We have Azure folder here, and we have our storage account model repository right here, and we have added this deploy model method, but now we need to implement it as well. And we already have this model repository container that we do have more or less here, and we set it up here. Let's make it simpler. And you see how we create our blob container here based on container name, and we then go ahead and upload the model by creating a container that doesn't exist, and then getting blob containers, and then we just opening up the stream and uploading it. So that's all good. So we have to think about the structure here as well. So in Azure Blob Storage, we can't really have file path or folder paths like that. It's definitely possible, but it's not easy or recommended to have that, I would say. So I think it makes more sense to think about a different structure here. So I would almost create a new container for our thing. So right now we have this model repository container, and I think we want this deployment container, but again we need an experiment name in here as well in some way. So that's the only issue, is how to figure out how we want to structure this container so that we can do that. Let's see if actually is there a good way to do folders in a container. I don't think so. It would be nice, I just don't think it is possible. But let's Google that real quick here. Okay, this is all good. Upload folder, okay. Create blob container folder. So I think it's possible. It's just not maybe what I will do here. Let me go ahead and go to Azure. We can look at that one real quick. I'm gonna log in on another screen here. I'm a little curious how this is going to work, but I think it's pretty cool to make it work as well. This PR is definitely bigger than I thought it would be. Okay, let's go to ML track. Let's check this out. Alright, so get this one in here. Alright, so we have these potential ones here, and I kind of created a container before here for deploy. And here you can do files, right? Okay, so you can upload to a folder here if you wanted to. That's interesting. I guess that's possible. Let's try just to folder one. Let's try that just to see if that actually works, if it creates a folder then. I don't know. Let's do a simple file there. I think there's a data somewhere here. Data. Okay. Okay, so it does create a folder. Okay, that's nice. So we actually has probably possibility for folder structures, and that would be that'd be very useful, I think. The question is, how do we do that for the SDK here to make it easy? Because in that case, we can definitely keep the same structure on the folders that we have, which would be a nice way of doing this, since we already decided that it's a good idea. So, how do we do that? Does this upload model have a good way of doing that? Is it actually just by changing the folder path? I think maybe we'll just we'll go ahead and try, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't work. But in general here, what we want to do here is we want to create a container if not exists, right? We want to create path to the deployment file, and then we want to copy blob over. Okay, and I think it should be good. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and create a new blob container here for deployments. So we'll say deployment container, right? And the container name here, and you should, I'll make sure to store this one. Let's go ahead here. Make sure we store this connection string so we can use it for this one here. Store the memory. The container name here is going to be deployment. That's good. And what we'll do here is say, okay, deployment container, create if not assist sync, right? The only thing here is that this is actually not it's not defined as an async method, so if we do that, we have to change the local file repository as well. But we have to do that, I think, because we're going to use async methods here for sure. So we have to change the signature of this specific one here. So it'll be path. This one is already missing returns anyway. Oh, it already has that one. I have to call this async. Okay. I will deal with this in a bit here, I think, but I'm just going to go ahead and change the signature at least here, and then we'll deal with this, I guess. I think the only change here is going to be this here, and we'll just do a task run, I think, to make this work. Delete this in curly brackets, I think so. Sync. What is going on? Let's see what's going on here. And we're missing a curly bracket of some sort, I think. And it's probably so that's good. Okay, we'll deal with the rest later, but that should be good. Let's go back to Azure, and we'll rename this async, and we should be on our way here. Come on, A. Work with me today. Alright. So, there we go. Now what we've done here is we have created a deployment container, we have created, it doesn't exist, so now we need to create a path to where we want this to go, I think. That would be the logical next step. And since we already have that method here, right, that would be using register models here, it would use the destination folder, and the question is just, it's not very usable if you do that, but in our case, it's not going to be as well, it's not going to be exactly the same thing here. So I'm going to copy this over and do our own thing, because it's not going to be the same implementation to get this folder. This is not really a folder. And the only change here we need to do actually is we'll need to combine the experiment name and run ID. Yeah, we don't actually need any of this stuff, I think. Deployment path would be, and we can pass in that here, I guess. So we do need a file system now to do this. Okay, that makes sense. And now we need a run ID. I'm trying to think if it makes sense to still use the same method here. So what we want is the path to where we deploy it, and then yeah. All right. Yeah, let's actually pass that in here. That is a good idea. I don't know, to be honest, if that's a good idea, because we can actually use just a string concatenation here. Let's not use file system right now. Let's just use the string join for now. It looks ugly, but that's what we're gonna do right now. Alright, so experiment name is just this, and deployment target name had also to do register model, run ID, we'll do .zip, okay. Will this give me what I want here? I think so. That's going to be deployment path. This is going to be very interesting to test because I'm actually not sure this is going to work, but we'll figure it out. Okay, actually did we? That's fine. Let's check that later. Alright, so we had the deployment path, we have a container that we've created already, and now we want to copy it over. So I think there should be a method here for copy here. Block copy. Start copy from URI async. That looks like something we want to do, right? Blob name. So okay, so this probably is going to be we want deploy 2. That's going to be deployment blob. Let's call it that, and then we need to figure out where to copy it from. But that's going to be from a different container. Can we do that? Okay, that's a URI, of course, so that could be from a different container. As long as it's the same storage account, it should be same credentials. So we need to think about where that's going to go. So the question is, can we get the URI easily from the existing one here? That's going to be a fun thing to try. So when we upload a model here, just run ID. When we download the model, we just do this. Let's see, can we get that here? So fancy here with a file extension. I guess we'll do that as well here. Be fancy as well. So that's the blob client here. Does it have a URI component that we can look at? Look at that. Maybe. Okay, so await. Okay. So that should probably work. So what we're doing here is doing that. And then we are hopefully getting this working. Deployment container here. And then what we want to do here is we want to return source model blob. Okay, I'm going to try to rename some things here that sounds a bit more useful. And deployment container, we can go ahead and make this a little bit better. So be deployed model blob. Like that. And then what we'll do is we'll also say then that okay, .URI, that should be where we should return, that should be the path. And we'll do it to string here, hopefully that will work. Cool, alright. It's not too bad, I think. And we can remove these, I think, as well, because we don't need those right now. Okay. Does that sound good to people on the stream right now? I know I've been a little bit all over the place here, trying to understand how we're going to get this path. So we need to add this test for this and see if we actually create proper folders by doing this, because it's possible that we don't, but that's something we have to check for sure here. And the only thing I want to do here is I want to make sure we specify the access credentials here, because I think that right now it's a private repo, and we want to, at least for this container, we want to have a different kind of access here to this one. It should be public, so we can access it for our purposes. And we only need a blob, I think, because that's going to give access to the blob, but not the container itself. Okay. And that is good. Okay. Let's try some tests here and see if this works, because it's possible that it doesn't work. And we do actually have, I think we have an Azure container, storage container we can use. It's actually a Docker container we can spin up here and look at this. So let's see if we can test this out with some unit test and then get that working. And I'm going to fix some build errors first, and then we'll get to that. Okay, that's good. Any more errors we have here? Let's fix that first. Wait. What else do we have here? And this can be renamed as well. The A on my keyboard is finicky. It sometimes doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do here. See, typing A, but this is the A. Okay, that's good. Any other things we want to do here is this one. Same thing here. Wait. And wait. Okay. And I have to fix these, of course. Perfect. That's awesome. Let's try to build this and see if we can add some tests to this. Hopefully that will work. Perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and add some tests to this as well, because you know we are all about tests on this project. We have to make sure we can automate everything here. So integration tests for Azure, we already have a couple, and we have a couple for the Cosmos DB, which we can run locally, but we also have stuff for the model catalog, I think, or the storage account model repo right here. So we actually already test to make sure we can upload these, which is great. So what we want to do now is of course to be able to copy it. So again, we should be able to add a method for that here. And this is going to be great because it will tell us as well how the structure looks like behind the scenes here. So it'll be deploy model sync should deploy model to target. Alright, range, acts, search. So what do we need to do here? We have this fake model already available, so we can go ahead and just upload that one, so we at least have something here. And we'll use the run ID as this one, so we know where that is. And that's going to give us at least a model that we've uploaded to. And then we need to copy some stuff we had here ready for our deployment targets and stuff to make sure that we get the right path to things. So we'll add that here, and for run ID here we'll just set the run ID that we just created. Okay, and then during act here we'll do a wait sit deploy, and we'll pass in the deployment targets and register model, and we should get back a path here, URI. Okay, and now the question is, for starters, we'll just check if it's not null. Honestly, I want to see how this works. Should not be null. And let's start with that just to see kind of the structure here. And I think we have a storage account emulator here somewhere. Yep. Okay. So let's actually go ahead and look at this. And I think we also need to start up a container, and I think we can use that using Docker here. Let's see which one it is. I think it's Azure, right? So let's start that up and see if this works. It was a while ago since I used this. Okay, that's running. Let's see how this works here. Okay. Not right now. Okay, storage accounts. So we have this emulator, I think. Blob containers. We should have one here. Okay, model repository. So I'm hoping what will happen here is we create a new one here called models, and okay, not right now. And that should hopefully do something. So let's go ahead and run this test and see if that is the case or not. And I'm going to put some breakpoints here so we can actually see when things are created and check if that's actually what's happening. So the cool thing with this is that we can run this test as part of our CI build as well. So we'll have a lot of insight into how this is going to behave. Alright, so here we go. We are going to hopefully now we should already have a model here with a FD61. So let's go look at that. We should have something here if we refresh this one. And did we refresh that one? Where is refresh? Okay, we got another one here, right? So this is the one that was created today. It's an octet stream and it's often inferred. So this is the model we just uploaded, so that's good. So now I'm hoping that we'll get a new container and that's copied over. So let's go ahead and go in and look here. We have this, the local connection string, and we should have created a new one now. So let's look at that first of all. Okay, so we have a new one called deployment, exactly what we wanted. And experiment name is going to be experiment name. This path here is okay, I think. That's kind of what we want. Experiment name, test. So I have no idea if this is going to work or not, so we will see. Okay, didn't complain about the path here. Okay, but we definitely don't need. Okay, this is. Oh wait, that's the source. That's fine. Deployment. Blob here. Okay, let's see. Okay, it didn't scream, which is good. So let's look at. We actually had something here, not? Look at that. Would you look at that? Oh, that is so pretty, isn't it? I'm sorry, this is fantastic. I love Azure. Sometimes it's just so simple and it does exactly what you want it to do. And it did exactly that right now. So, perfect. So what we do have here is our folder for deployments, and it is a public one. It's going to give us experiment name here, and it's going to give us another folder for deployment targets. In this case it was test, but you can have production and stage here, and under each of these we will have the registered model here with the proper extensions. Wow, that is great. So that is fantastic, and the question now is, how do you want to how can we assert that this actually works as expected? I mean, we could definitely visually inspect it now, but how do we know that that is working as expected? Don't know, to be honest, because we want to do is access this model almost. Can we do that directly through the URI in some good way here? I kind of want to download a model for the URI here. That would be kind of what I would like to do. Let's run it again. I want to look at the URI real quick. That's awesome. So happy to see that this is working. Okay, so URI here ends up being the local post, of course. Okay, so we will have that part of the URI as well with the slashes here, and that is okay. I don't know if we can use that especially, but that's okay. What happens if I copy this and let's say I run it in the browser here? We get the model. And if we open up the folder here, sorry, let me get the folder up for you guys. If we go to my downloads, we can, well, not sure if I want to show all my downloads, but we definitely have the path here. And if I open up the zip file here, it looks like its zip is, okay, this is kind of what I'm getting here. The compressed zip folder is empty. Okay. It is not a zip folder, I guess, because we are just doing a txt file here, so that's kind of what this issue is, I think. Let's see, if we open it up in Notepad here, is that going to look good or not? Yep, alright, perfect. So it actually worked. You can see here, this is the fake model we have here. So actually what we have here is a fake model, it's a txt file, and this is the content of it. But we can see here that we actually upload it, we are copying it over, we're deploying it, so it does seem like it's working at least. And the only thing here I want to do is to test that we can access it in some way. I wonder if that's in the Azure SDK that we can look at maybe. Let's see. Download URI. What can we do here? Because I feel like we could almost implement that here and test it out, but yeah, let's look at that. I don't think I'll be happy just leaving it as okay, it's not null, because that's not going to be sufficient. Anything else I want to do in here? Is this something that I can check as well or not? Like, okay, so we definitely want to check this as well here. So let's go ahead and add that as a thing here. And make sure we add some checks here for is blob existing or not. So if our source model blob does exist, then we'll be angry. Okay, so that's good. We'll have the same kind of check there as we had before. And what else do we need to do here to make this robust? That looks good to me. I'm happy with that. What we can do here is create the blob container here. So let me go ahead and do this in the test here, I think, to make sure we check this properly. And okay. Actually, let's do it in test because this is going to be specific for this scenario here. So we'll do that as here. Deployment. Let me think about this actually. Do we need this or not? Because we can either check. Let's see here. I don't really want to navigate into that path. I want to check that I can actually download this. So that's kind of more of a REST operation. Let's see if you can find a good example here. Okay, download. Well, download file. Yes. I think we'll just go ahead and use the C# library for from path, I guess. We can probably do that, right? And we'll just do this instead. So what we should be able to do here is to make our life a bit easier, create an HTTP client here, and this should be able to give us enough of the URI here. That will be the ultimate test that this is working. And we should say that response length here should be, and I think this is status code. First of all, and response. What do we have? What do we have? Content here. Is it content? Length. That somewhere. I think we have a length here somewhere. Let's debug this test and see what we have here that we can use to ensure this is working as expected. But I think we're pretty good here at least. Nice. Okay, response here is okay. So if I continue here, that's a good. Okay, and let's see what else do we have in response here. And that is good. And content, here we go. Headers. Is it in the header? Could be content length. Okay, there we go. So content length should be more than 0. I think that's all we need to check out. That means that we at least have something successfully that exists there. And we actually have something downloaded. Okay, I'm happy with that. That should be a good method to check, and that will give us good confidence at least that, hey, we actually uploaded something, we deployed something, it's accessible, and we're creating a container that's accessible public as well. So that should be good. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and add a unit test for Azure, and then we'll continue on to AWS here. So we have this empty test right now, and I want to make sure we add a class here. It should be storage account pod repository tests. I wonder if anyone is awake on the stream so far, but if you are, that is awesome. Thank you for joining in. Just chugging away on this. I want to get this to a public preview or something like that. We're so close now. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to use kind of some stuff here that we have already. And to this one, it's going to be storage account model repository, and let's see what we need here. Connection string. Okay, so we need a connection string, and we can fetch that from the same places we have locally. If I do that though, it's going to run locally. It will, and that's not what we want to do here. Can we mock this away in some way? Okay, so the reason why I don't have unit test here is because we can't mock these clients as it currently stands, and that's not always a good thing because we can't necessarily mock these clients here. So we have to re-architect this one if you want to mock this away. And do we want to do that right now? Maybe. Right now we have this extension here, we pass in these things. What we could do pass in instead is these containers here. I think it may make sense to re-architect this a bit because we have tests against this. So instead of doing connection string here, we can pass in these containers, and like that they will be there for always. Okay, this is going to be a little piping, so if you want to get a coffee you can do that now. If you want to look at that you can join me on this, but I think it makes sense to do this. So here we have still in Azure, so that's okay. We're gonna do this one. It's going to be model repository. Okay. Like that. Repository clients. Okay. And then we want to do another one here. So this is going to be a blob container client, model repository. Okay, and we'll do that. Initialize a field here. We don't need to store these anymore. We don't need to store this one or this one or this one. And I want instead change name to this to be this, and we'll go ahead and make sure these are created before anything else. We'll do that outside, and same thing here, and we'll fix this later. Okay, that's good. And then we want to do a separate thing here as well. We want the same blob container client. I want to do that for the deployment client. Okay, just like that. And then we'll do deployment client here instead, so we don't need to worry about this one. But we will do this outside, so we'll do that in the extensions right here. Here we'll make sure we create these before they exist or not, so we'll do create if not exist. They have to be async methods here, but that's okay. Okay. Blob here. now we can pass in the model repository client here. Now we can pass in the deployment client here. Perfect. So now we set up the access policies right here and make sure we can actually specify it here as well. To make that private and make one public, and we have the names. That's a little bit cleaner. We pass those in here. That's good. We don't need to worry about this anymore. And we can then go ahead and say this deployment client. That's a bit less code here in each of these. I like that a lot. And okay. And let's create a quick one here just to get model name, real-time ID, and we'll pass in here. It'll be, that's all. I just feel like we continuously do this everywhere, and I at least want it in one place. So we do it the same way everywhere. Okay. There we go. Instead, just do this now. Get model name. A little bit less verbose here at least. So everywhere we use that, we'll go ahead and change that. Same thing here, we don't need to do that just that way. We'll do it this way instead. Run ID. Okay. Alright, so that's a bit better. So let's kind of build this first, and then we're going to go ahead and fix any build errors and then add a unit test that we were supposed to add that we have to refactor all this for. But it's for the better, right? Always refactor when you can, always clean up when you can, because it'll be harder and harder the longer you let this just be. Okay, so in this case here, these are actual tests, so we do want them to be actually working. So in our case here, I think what we can do is we can copy all this to make that work and pass those in here. And we will just go ahead and do this. Clients. And deployment clients. Okay. And what else do we have as build errors? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Alright, so now we're back at the unit test again. That's awesome. So now we need to have some mocks here, which was kind of what I wanted to do here. So model repository client mock. And I think what we do currently probably is do this, so let's do that for naming, and we'll do is new mock blob client. What were they called? Blob container client. I don't think that we have an interface for this, do we? Nope. So that's going to be what we're going to call it. Okay. Hopefully that's going to work. I don't like the mock in the beginning, so we'll change that to afterwards. Create a field for this, because I think we want to manipulate those later. And then we'll do the same thing for the deployment. Deployment client mock. Don't do that. Create a new one instead. Okay. And put. Okay, Perfect. Alright, so now we are in business, I think. Objects. Deployment clients mock. Object. Fantastic. Alright, so let's look at the test we already have for deployment here. The unit test. And the one I definitely want to do right now is just to make sure that it throws an exception if it doesn't exist. And we can do that by doing this. And we expect that to throw an exception because we haven't really done anything. We have to probably set up some stuff here, but let's see if we can let's see how this works, because I think we have to do some mocks here. Let's run this and see if that's the case or not. Let's debug this one. See how it's coming along here. Building, or what it's doing here? Oh, we don't have a test here, that's why. Test method. Alright. Let's see if this is running now or not. Okay, let's go in this method. All good. So this is the mock we have right now. So I'm not sure how this is going to behave here, but let's see. Okay, so it did behave well. It's just null because we haven't set up the mock here, but at least it's working. So we need to mock this one here and say that we get something back. And I think that's going to be the behavior we want here. So get blob client needs to work. So let's see here. So we'll do here is say this model repository client mock setup get blob client, right? Is, and we don't really care what the string is right now, so we'll just do that. But that one should return new blob client. I think that's okay. We can actually return new mock here instead. We don't want a real implementation. Is that a blob client type? I think so, right? Blob client, okay. So we'll create a mock here for that. So we'll do blob client mock, new mock, blob client, blob client mock. Perfect. Okay. And the reason why we want that is because we can then set up the blob client mock here and say, okay, set up this one. If someone calls exists on you, and actually we don't need to have anything here, it should return false. Okay. Let's see what is going on. I think this is correct, so why is it complaining here? I think this is a method, right? I don't think this is a property. Okay. Okay, so I think we need to just specify, because it's an optional parameter, that's why. I think that's the issue right now, is that it needs to actually specify this. Azure response bool. Oh, this is so complicated. What is an Azure response bool? Okay, sure. Why not? What is this even? Shouldn't it be a boolean? I mean, I don't see that why that would be anything else here. Okay. It's a strange way of doing that. But sure. Oh, so complicated. Okay, so can we do a new one here? Or not? From value. It's an abstract class. That's fine. But what do we actually return here? Oh, this is annoying. Response bool, that's all good. But what is the actual implementation class here? I don't understand. I just want to return false. I just want to return false. Let's check what that is. Okay, Azure response. Mock. Don't need to create an abstract class mock from that. But let's go look. Can we do that? Okay, I'm not sure if it's gonna work because I think it's going to. I think it's going to break, but let's see if this works or not. I have a feeling that it won't like my mock of an abstract class, but we'll see. See if it's happy or not. It would be nice if it just kind of worked, but oh, okay. All right, maybe it works. Let's see. Actually works. All right, good. So that worked, perfect. So now we check that leads us throwing the exception we expect if it doesn't exist. So what can we test else with this specific method here, right? Well, we can test that if it exists, so we can switch that switch, right? We can do some other stuff here as well, but I think this specific one here is okay. Can we switch this switch easily? That's what I'm wondering. Let's see real quick if that's possible. That would be nice. Given model exists, should call copy plot. So let's see, can we do that? Response mock here, set up. We have a method here for this. Value, right? Returns true. I think that's the way we want to do it. That's going to get that. So in this case here, we don't need to expect the exception here. We just need this one. And if we trickle down here, all the way here, then we should also mock this one to get our deployment blob here. We need to check that we are getting the expected one here. And what we'll do here is we'll say, similar to do the model repository client here, we'll do the deployment client mock, that if it gets anything, it gets a new mock here. And that's fine, we can use the same mock, it doesn't really hurt us here. And then we want to make sure that we actually call this method here, so it's going to be our assert. And we can actually have a different client now because we're going to assert different things here. Deployment client mock. And so we're going to return that here. And then we're going to set up this blob client mock here as well to say blob client mock setup. We'll do URI returns my URI here. URI. Thank you. There we go. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to search that our deployment client mock here, verify, we want to verify the copy sync, and this should be my URI. Actually, we can have this separately, so source URI, so we make sure it's the same reference we use here. Okay. So source URI. And we expect it to be once here, so times once. And we definitely have something here we need to set as well. We got quite a few things here. Don't need to worry about that, so null, 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 null. Okay, so we need to set some lots of nulls here because we can't have conditionals. Is this too many? Okay, source. First one is URI, that's set, and then we have a dictionary. It's 1, 2, 3. Okay. And what are the defaults for those? First one is going to be 1, 2, 3, and then we have, oh, we get more, 4, 5. Okay, 5. 5 nulls plus a default. Okay. Alright, so that should be once with a source URI. Let's see if we run this, if that's the case, or if something else is missing here. Hopefully this is going to work. We'll know in just a bit. And I guess this is our test here, and they're not looking happy. Okay, something happened here. Invalid URI. Okay, so that's okay. We can go ahead and run the other test and just copy that URI over because that's kind of good enough. Let's see, where do we have that? Integration tests from Azure. Come on, come on, come on. Cancel, I'm not sure what that is. Okay. Let's go to this one here, and let's get the URI from this test here if we run it real quick. I'm interested to see how Azure or how AWS is going to work here when we do that on AWS. I'm sure that's a very different syntax, and the library is very different, so be interested to see how that's going to work here. Okay, I'm just going to copy this over. This is going to be our valid URI, if that makes sense. Okay, there we go. That seems like a valid URI to me, hopefully. Okay, so let's run this one here and see if this passes. I like the URI at least, it's very readable. It's like, oh, deployment, experiment name, deployment target, and then the file path. It makes sense to me at least. Is it already finished? Okay, value can't be null, parameter URI. Let's see. So I think what we're seeing here is probably one of the mocks is not working as expected here. And that's probably the return URI, of course. Yeah, okay. So we have this probably here now, but this can't be null. So we want the deployment model blob here. So we want to do this one, and we want to do. We can actually change this one here to be just model repository here. Actually, let's copy this first. It's going to be deployment URI. It's going to be source URI. Model repository. And then what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and do this one. And we'll say that, hey, deployment. Blob client, okay, that one's good. This will be the deployment URI. Okay, let's see if this one runs this time. I think this is going to work now. Hopefully. Still not what I expected. Okay, let's debug this one in that case. There's something going on in our test here that is not 100%. And we'll figure it out. Then I think it's time for lunch for me. It's been here 2.5 hours already. Okay, perfect. We go past that. Oh, we don't go past that actually. Okay, so this is probably where it's going wrong here. Get blob container. Why is it failing right there? That's interesting. Get blob container. This one is here. And we see that we pass that in. That's set up, so that should return as expected. And it should be mock, so why is it complaining? Solve it, because this needs to be solved, and I want to finish Azure today. Why is this URI empty here? Okay, this should be a mock, right? Okay, this is a mock. This is a mock. That looks good. And I don't get that. There should be a mock. Oh, wait, this is different. Get blob client and get blob client is not the same. And this actually doesn't need to be blob, it should be blob, I think. That is probably the issue, and that'd be good to test locally as well to make sure that our tests still work after this change here, but hopefully this works. That's a good catch at least. I don't think you need to get a blob here. Perfect, look at that. Okay, so that works. Let's run our integration test one more time just to be sure, and then let's go ahead and commit this. And we do need to add a list as well of what's left to do here, because I think we have some unit tests to add and we have some other things to add here. But let's make sure we have at least yep, could. Alright, so I think we can safely say we added support for Azure here now at least. Alright, so added file deployment support for Azure. Alright, so let's go up here and let's look at what we've done, and let's also add some comments here because we'll need them. So before we said what was left here that we needed to add all this stuff. Okay. Remaining work is add deploy model for an S3 bucket. We need to implement unit tests for the deployment catalog. Deploy model method. Implement method to get the path to the model, deploy model based on registered model and deployment targets. Potentially a larger integration test to let's see, to larger end-to-end test, I think. Deploy, run, create run, register model, get deployment target, and make sure that everything works as expected. Fetch our entities. I think that's good, and I think we also have some kind of failing test here. Let's look at that, something that can fix quickly, otherwise we'll do that later, I think. Your integration test is failing. Alright, well, we have something failing on upload model here. Let's check this real quick, make sure we can fix that. Don't want to leave too much crap behind here. So I think that had to do with the path we put here, right? So destination folder is there, and we don't use that anywhere else, that's fine. Model path is not going to be . the storage path. It's not going to be there, it's going to be under model repository right now. Let's run this one, make sure that works. Okay, that works. Okay, let's fix that. Alright, well, perfect everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's stream. We have added support for URI deployment for local file as well as for Azure in a blob storage container, which I think is awesome. Really good job everyone. Next thing we have to do here is add support for an S3 buckets deployment and some other minor cleanup for this PR, but hopefully I have a chance to do that this week, or otherwise we'll do it next weekend and get this wrapped up and deployed honestly. I wish you all a fantastic rest of your weekend and a great week coming up. And as always, if you have any questions or something you want to talk about, just send me a message in chats. Twitter is always open, and I would love to hear from you. With that, I wish you all the best. Bye bye.